Jamal Carter, a sharp black software engineer, steps onto a crowded Atlanta flight, his tech conference badge gleaming. A white passenger mutters about his suspicious backpack. Security storms in, dragging Jamal off, his cheek scraped bloody. In a dim holding room, he calls his mom, Evelyn, the airline's owner, who vows justice. A cryptic text buzzes. "You'll regret this. Will her power save him or unleash a nightmare? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe for more gripping stories." Jamal Carter slumped against the cold steel bench in a cramped Atlanta airport holding room, his cheek still stinging from where security had slammed him to the floor, the memory of their boots thudding against the plane's aisle burning in his mind. The air reeked of stale coffee and sweat, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets, casting harsh shadows on the gray walls. His phone, returned after hours of silence, showed a dozen missed calls from his mother, Evelyn, her voicemail promising the airline would pay for this outrage. Jamal, a 28-year-old software engineer with a knack for turning chaos into code, felt his pulse steady at her words, her voice a lifeline in the storm. But the officer across the desk, a burly white man with a badge reading officer, Tate, wasn't listening to reason. He leaned forward, his breath sour, and spat out the accusation. A passenger claimed Jamal's backpack held explosives, a lie born from the nervous glance of a woman in row 12 who'd clutched her purse when he boarded. Jamal's protests, sharp and clear, bounced off Tate's smirk, the officer's eyes glinting with the kind of prejudice that didn't need evidence. No search had been done, no bomb squad called, just a snap judgment that a black man with a laptop bag was trouble. After 6 hours of questions, they released him. No charges, no apology, just a curt nod to the exit. Jamal stumbled into the humid 90-degree Atlanta night, his suit wrinkled, his pride battered, but his resolve ironclad. He'd make them pay, not just for him, but for every soul profiled in those sterile terminals. Back at his apartment, a sleek loft 10 miles from Hartsfield-Jackson, he scrolled through X, his stomach twisting as he saw the first viral video. Grainy footage of him being yanked from the plane, captioned, "Terrorist Takedown at ATL." The comments were a sewer of hate, calling him a thug, a danger, a nobody who didn't belong in first class. His inbox overflowed with threats, each one a knife to his gut, but he clung to the belief that truth would cut deeper. Evelyn called, her voice tight, saying she'd ordered an internal investigation, promising heads would roll. Jamal, fueled by her words, decided to fight back. He set up his webcam, the city skyline glowing through his window, and recorded a video laying out the truth. He was a tech innovator, not a terrorist, targeted for his skin, not his actions. His words were fire, his eyes fierce, and when he posted it, the views climbed. Thousands of likes pouring in, supportive comments calling him a hero. For a fleeting moment, as he watched the numbers tick past 10,000, Jamal felt the tide turning, his mother's power behind him, the world waking up to the injustice. He leaned back, exhaling, imagining the airline's PR team scrambling, the passengers lie crumbling under scrutiny. But then his phone pinged, a news alert shattering the calm. A new video had dropped, this one crystal clear, showing Jamal, on the plane, his backpack unzipped, a suspicious black box inside, edited to look like a bomb component. The caption screamed, "Exclusive, airport threat caught on camera." His heart sank as the views skyrocketed, dwarfing his own post. X lit up with fresh venom, his supporters drowned out by a chorus of fear and rage. Jamal's video, once a beacon, was now buried under hashtags like Bakr Atlanta Threat. He clicked the link to the source, a major news outlet, and saw the name behind the leak. Victor Hargrove, the airline's chief operating officer, a man with a smile like a shark and connections that ran deeper than the Mississippi. Hargrove's statement was a masterclass in deflection, calling for calm while hinting Jamal's history warranted caution. Jamal had no history, no record, but the lie stuck, spreading like wildfire across every screen in America. His phone buzzed again, this time with a text from an unknown number. "Keep talking and it gets worse." The room spun, the city lights blurring outside, as Jamal realized this wasn't just a mistake, but a calculated war. Hargrove, a 55-year-old executive with a mansion 20 miles outside Atlanta, wasn't just protecting the airline. He was protecting a system that saw Jamal as less than human. The viral storm grew, news anchors dissecting his life, pundits questioning his presence on that flight, his very right to exist in their world. Jamal's supporters tried to fight back, but their voices were swallowed by the machine Hargrove controlled, a machine that turned a software engineer into a national pariah in hours. His mother called again, her voice cracking, promising to confront Hargrove at the next board meeting. But Jamal heard the doubt creeping in, the weight of a company she owned but didn't fully control. He stared at the screen, the doctored footage looping, his face plastered across every news site, and felt the walls closing in. The false accusation had morphed into a public shaming, a scarlet letter branded on his name, and Hargrove's leak was just the beginning. Jamal clenched his fists, his mind racing, knowing he had to clear his name before the lies buried him for good. But the text's warning echoed, a promise of darker days ahead. Jamal Carter trudged up the stairs to his Atlanta loft, the humid 85-degree evening clinging to his skin like a bad memory. The viral videos from the airport still looping in his mind, each frame a punch to his gut. His phone buzzed, with another news alert, the headlines screaming his name alongside words like threat and suspect. The doctored footage Victor Hargrove leaked, now a national obsession, painting Jamal as a monster who never was. He unlocked his door, the familiar hum of the city 15 miles from the airport usually a comfort. But tonight it felt like a cage. Inside, his inbox overflowed with hate, strangers calling him a terrorist. His face plastered across every screen. In America, the lies spreading faster than he could blink. Then came the email from his employer, a tech firm 30 miles north in Buckhead, where he'd built algorithms that powered million-dollar apps. The message was cold, clinical, citing brand damage from the videos, his termination effective, immediately. No severance, no appeal. Jamal's chest tightened, his dreams of leading the next big startup dissolving like smoke in the muggy air. He called his best friend Marcus, hoping for a lifeline. But Marcus's voice was distant, muttering about keeping a low profile, the kind of caution that screamed betrayal without saying it. The next morning, Jamal stepped outside, the sun blazing at 90 degrees, and found his neighbors avoiding his gaze, their whispers sharp as glass. Mrs. Thompson, who'd baked him cornbread last Christmas, crossed the street, her eyes darting, like he was a stranger in his own building. The weight of their fear, fed by Hargrove's lies, crushed him, but Jamal refused to break. His mother, Evelyn, called, her voice a mix of fury and fear, promising to dig into Hargrove's role, but she warned him to stay quiet, her tone hinting at boardroom battles he couldn't see. Jamal wasn't built to hide. He rallied a dozen supporters, friends from his coding boot camp and a local activist named Lena, their signs hand-painted with slogans like truth over lies and justice for Jamal. They marched to the airline's headquarters, a gleaming tower 20 miles downtown, chanting under the scorching sun, their voices echoing off glass and steel. Passers-by snapped photos, some joining in, and for a moment, as the crowd swelled to 50, Jamal felt the ground shift, the power of collective rage pushing back against the machine. His phone lit up with live streams, the protest trending on X, hashtags like Tag, Stand with Jamal climbing the charts. He stood on a bench, his voice booming, recounting the airport humiliation, the false accusations, the job he'd lost, and the crowd roared, their fists raised, a tide of hope washing over him. This was it, he thought. The moment Hargrove's lies would crack, the airline forced to face its sins. But as the sun dipped, casting long shadows across the plaza, a new group appeared, their signs uglier, their shouts laced with venom. They called Jamal's crew radicals, agitators, their banners screaming, "Protect our skies." The air turned electric, tense, and Jamal spotted the glint of paid muscle in their eyes, men too polished to be random bigots. Victor Hargrove, from his office 40 floors above, had orchestrated this, hiring agitators to turn the protest into chaos. Sirens wailed, red and blue lights flashing as police swarmed, their batons gleaming under streetlights. They ignored the counter-protesters, zeroing in on Jamal's group. Lena's arm twisted as she was cuffed. Marcus shoved to the pavement, his glasses cracking. Jamal tried to intervene, his voice hoarse, but an officer's glare stopped him cold, the kind of look that promised worse if he pushed. The news cameras, tipped off by Hargrove's team, captured only the arrests, spinning a story of violent radicals threatening Atlanta's peace. By midnight, a citywide curfew blanketed Jamal's neighborhood, 5 square miles of mostly black and brown families now under lockdown, their doors marked by fear, while the counter-protesters vanished into the night, unscathed. Jamal stood alone on his balcony, the city's pulse now a warning, his supporters scattered, some in jail, others too scared to fight on. His phone buzzed with a text from that same unknown number. "You thought you'd win? Keep pushing, and your whole block burns." Hargrove wasn't just fighting him, he was choking a community, using his power to twist truth into chains. Jamal's job was gone, his neighbors turned, his allies silenced, and the protest he'd pinned his hopes on had become a trap, its failure broadcast to millions. Yet his blood burned hotter, his mind racing with plans to hit back, to find a way to make Hargrove pay. He thought of Evelyn, her promise to confront the board, and wondered if her power could still shift the tide, or if Hargrove's reach was too deep, his next move already in motion. Hey, if you're raging at this injustice, drop a comment with number 1 to stand with Jamal's fight, hit that like button to spread the truth, and subscribe to catch every twist in this battle. What do you think Jamal should do next when the city he loves turns against him and Hargrove's grip tightens? Jamal Carter sat in a dimly lit coffee shop 10 miles from downtown Atlanta, the bitter scent of espresso mixing with the ache in his bones, the city's curfew still choking his neighborhood like a noose, the protest's failure replaying in his mind, Lena's arrest and Marcus's cracked glasses haunting him. The morning sun barely cut through the 92-degree haze outside, but inside, his resolve burned hotter than ever, fueled by the memory of Hargrove's hired agitators turning his stand for justice into chaos. His phone, now a lifeline and a curse, buzzed with a call from his mother, Evelyn, her voice low, urgent, promising to fund a lawsuit against the airline, a chance to clear his name and expose Victor Hargrove's lies. Jamal's heart lifted, her words a spark in the dark, her power as the airline's owner a weapon he could wield. He met with a lawyer, Sarah Nguyen, a sharp 40-year-old with a reputation for shredding corporate giants, her office 15 miles from the airport, its walls lined with framed victories. Sarah laid out the plan, a defamation suit, arguing the airline's leaked footage and Hargrove's statements had ruined Jamal's life, costing him his job, his reputation, his safety. She was confident, her eyes gleaming as she described the damages they'd demand, millions to make the airline bleed. Jamal nodded, picturing Hargrove squirming in a courtroom, his polished smirk wiped clean. Sarah uncovered a key witness, a flight attendant named Carla Ruiz, who'd overheard the white passenger's baseless complaint about Jamal's backpack, her testimony ready to prove the profiling was racial, not rational. Carla, risking her job, met them in a park 20 miles outside the city, her hands trembling but her voice steady, recounting how security ignored her protests that day. Jamal felt a surge of hope, the pieces aligning, the truth finally within reach. News of the lawsuit spread, local outlets picking up the story, some framing Jamal as a victim fighting back, a David against the airline's Goliath. X buzzed with justice for Jamal, his supporters resurfacing, their comments a balm to the wounds of the protest's collapse. Evelyn wired funds to Sarah's firm, her support a silent vow, and Jamal allowed himself to believe the courtroom would be his redemption, a place where facts could outshine Hargrove's lies. The trial date loomed, set for a courthouse 5 miles from the airline's headquarters, its marble steps a stage for justice. Jamal arrived in a crisp suit, the 95-degree heat no match for the fire in his chest, reporters snapping photos as he climbed the steps, Sarah at his side, Carla's affidavit in her briefcase. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and tension, the gallery packed with spectators, some whispering support, others glaring with the hate Hargrove's videos had sown. The judge, a white man named Harold Vance, 60 years old with a face like weathered stone, banged his gavel and Jamal's pulse quickened, ready for the fight. Sarah's opening statement was a blade, slicing through the airline's narrative, calling out the racial bias that sparked this nightmare. Jamal watched the jury, a mix of faces, some nodding, others unreadable, and felt the momentum building, the truth gaining ground. Then came the climax, a moment that shattered his world. Judge Vance interrupted Sarah mid-sentence, his voice cold, declaring a technicality, a missing filing deadline Sarah swore she'd met. The case was dismissed. The gavels cracked like a gunshot, the gallery gasping as Jamal's hope evaporated. Sarah's face paled, her files useless, and Jamal's eyes darted to Vance, catching a flicker of something, a glance toward the defense table where the airline's lawyers sat, smug and untouched. Outside, in the blistering heat, Sarah revealed the truth. Vance had been bribed, his bank account fattened by Hargrove's allies, a fact she'd uncover but couldn't prove in time. Worse, Carla was fired that morning, her phone flooded with threats, her apartment vandalized, her courage punished by Hargrove's wrath. Jamal's phone pinged with a breaking news alert. Sarah was disbarred, the state bar citing ethics violations, a fabricated charge traced to a law firm linked to Hargrove's network. The courthouse steps swarmed with cameras, but now they framed Jamal as a loser, a troublemaker whose case never stood a chance. His supporters dwindled, the hashtag fading. Replaced by sneers of "I told you so," Evelyn called, her voice trembling, admitting the board was pressuring her to distance herself, Hargrove's influence creeping into her empire. Jamal stood alone in the park where he'd met Carla, the grass scorched by the relentless sun, his lawsuit in ashes, his allies broken, Hargrove's power seemingly untouchable. The text came again. That unknown number. "You're done, Carter. Try again, and you'll lose more than a case." The legal system, his last bastion, had betrayed him, its doors slammed shut by the same racism that started this fight. Yet Jamal's mind churned, his coding skills a weapon still sharp, a way to hack into the airline's secrets and expose Hargrove's corruption from the inside. He thought of Carla's bravery, Sarah's ruined career, and knew he couldn't stop, not when the truth was still out there, buried but not dead. The courthouse loomed in the distance, a monument to failure, but also a reminder. Hargrove's victory was built on lies, and lies could be broken if Jamal could find the right how. Jamal Carter hunched over his laptop in a dingy motel room 12 miles from Atlanta's glowing skyline, the stale air thick with the scent of mildew and desperation, the sting of the courtroom's betrayal still raw, Judge Vance's gavel echoing like a death knell in his mind. The 90-degree heat outside seeped through the cracked window, but Jamal's focus was razor-sharp, his fingers dancing across the keyboard, each keystroke a rebellion against the system that had stripped him of his job, his allies, his name. The lawsuit's collapse, Carla's firing, Sarah's disbarment, all orchestrated by Victor Hargrove, had left him with nothing but his coding skills, a weapon he'd honed since he was a kid debugging games in his mom's basement. Evelyn's last call, her voice frayed with boardroom pressure, had urged him to lay low, but Jamal knew hiding meant surrender, and surrender wasn't in his blood. He'd spent days probing the airline's servers, slipping through digital backdoors, his screen glowing with lines of code under the motel's flickering bulb. After nights of no sleep, he hit gold, a cache of emails proving Hargrove's hand in the doctored footage, the threats to Carla, even the judge's bribe, each message a thread in a web of corruption that stretched from Atlanta to DC. Jamal's pulse raced, the truth a ticking bomb in his hands, ready to blow Hargrove's empire apart. He reached out to a journalist, Priya Sharma, a 35-year-old investigative reporter 20 miles away, known for exposing corporate scams. They met in a crowded diner, the clink of plates masking their whispers. Priya's eyes widening as she scrolled through the emails on a burner phone, her pen scratching notes like a war plan. She promised to break the story. Her outlet's reach, enough to make it viral, and Jamal felt a flicker of victory, imagining Hargrove's face when the world saw his crimes. Priya worked fast, her article dropping online at midnight, headlined "Airline Exec's Racist Plot Exposed," with Jamal's evidence front and center, the emails unredacted, Hargrove's name in bold. By dawn, the story was everywhere, X exploding, with outrage. Hargrove exposed trending as users shared screenshots, demanded accountability. Protests erupted outside the airline's headquarters, a glass fortress 15 miles from Jamal's hideout. Hundreds chanting for justice. Their signs, a sea of defiance under the blazing sun. News vans circled, anchors quoting Priya's piece, and for the first time in weeks, Jamal's name wasn't a curse but a cause. His story retold as a victim fighting back, not a villain. He watched the live streams from his motel, the crowd's roar vibrating through his screen, and let himself believe this was the end, that Hargrove's lies couldn't survive this fire. Evelyn texted, her words cautious but proud, saying the board was rattled, Hargrove's grip slipping. Jamal exhaled, the weight of months lifting, picturing a life where he could walk outside without fear, maybe even rebuild his career. But, as the protest peaked, his phone screamed with alerts, a new headline slicing through the triumph. Cyber terrorist linked to airline hack, with his name, his face, plastered across every site. Hargrove had struck back, planting fake digital fingerprints tying Jamal to a server breach that never happened, framing him as a hacker who'd endangered millions. The evidence was meticulous, forged logs showing Jamal's IP attacking the airline systems, a lie so convincing even Priya's outlet ran a follow-up, hedging their bets. Before Jamal could process the betrayal, sirens wailed outside, red and blue lights flashing through the motel's thin curtains. The FBI stormed in, boots thudding, rifles raised, their shouts a blur as they tore through his room, confiscating his laptop, his burner phone, everything. Jamal stood frozen, hands raised, the agents' glares heavy with the same prejudice he'd faced on that plane, their questions about terrorism ignoring his pleas. They didn't arrest him, not yet, but the warrant was national, his name now a synonym for danger. Every airport, every city, hunting him. The protests fizzled as news of the hack spread, supporters scattering, afraid to back a fugitive. Priya called, her voice shaking, saying she'd been sidelined, her editors spooked by Hargrove's pull. Jamal's motel was compromised, the manager's shifty eyes proof someone had tipped off the feds. He grabbed his backpack, the same one that started this nightmare, and slipped out. The 95-degree night swallowing him as he ran, heart pounding, the city's pulse now a predator's beat. Hargrove's retaliation wasn't just personal, it was surgical, turning Jamal's truth into a federal crime, his evidence into a trap. The emails, once his salvation, were now his noose, and the journalist he'd trusted was silenced, her story buried under Hargrove's lies. Evelyn's text came as he hid in an alley, her words cryptic. "I'm trying, but he's everywhere." Jamal's mind raced, the FBI's net tightening, his options shrinking to one. Run, and find a way to fight another day. The alley's shadows cloaked him, but Hargrove's reach was endless. His next move a ghost waiting to strike. Jamal thought of the truck driver who'd helped him once, 90 miles away. A faint hope in a world turned against him, and started moving, knowing every step was a gamble, every second a countdown to Hargrove's next blow. Jamal Carter crouched in the back of a rattling pickup truck, the 95-degree Georgia night pressing against him like a fever, the FBI raid's red and blue lights still flashing in his memory, the motel room's wreckage a scar on his soul. The truck's driver, a grizzled black man named Ray, 60 years old with hands calloused from decades hauling freight, had spotted Jamal sprinting from the alley and offered a ride, no questions asked, his eyes carrying the quiet understanding of a man who'd faced his own battles with the world's cruelty. Ray was headed to a small town 90 miles west of Atlanta, a speck called Millhaven, where cotton fields stretched under a moonless sky, a place Jamal hoped could hide him from the federal net tightening around his life. His backpack, now a symbol of the lie that started this nightmare, held only a burner phone, a few bucks, and the fading hope that his mother, Evelyn, could turn the tide. The truck's radio crackled, a news anchor droning about the cyber terrorist Jamal Carter, the words slicing deeper with every mile. Hargrove's forged evidence now a national truth, his face on every screen from Miami to Seattle. Jamal's call to Evelyn connected as Ray's truck rumbled past a gas station, her voice a lifeline through the static, promising to confront Victor Hargrove at an emergency board meeting in 48 hours. Her tone fierce but frayed, hinting at enemies within her own ranks. Jamal clung to her words, believing her power as the airline's owner could still shield him, maybe even clear his name. Ray dropped him at a rundown safe house in Millhaven, a clapboard shack 5 miles from the town's only diner, its windows boarded, the air inside thick with dust and the ghosts of forgotten lives. Jamal thanked Ray, slipping him $20 and settled in, his burner phone's dim glow his only company as he planned his next move. He'd hack deeper, find new evidence, something Hargrove couldn't bury, and send it to every journalist, still brave enough to listen. For a moment in the quiet of the shack, the crickets chirping outside, Jamal felt safe, a fugitive but not broken, his mother's promise a beacon in the dark. He slept for the first time in days, dreaming of a courtroom where truth won, not money, but dawn brought hell. The shack's door splintered at 6 in the morning, the 90-degree heat flooding in as 3 mercenaries, faces masked, stormed the room, their rifles gleaming like death itself. Jamal dove behind a rotting couch, his heart slamming, the mercenaries' boots crunching glass, their voices low, professional, hired by Hargrove's endless wallet. They weren't feds, these were killers, sent to end him. No questions, no cameras. The leader barked orders, and Jamal's eyes caught the flicker of a gasoline can, the smell sharp and deadly. They torched Ray's safe house, flames licking the walls, smoke choking the air as Jamal crawled through a broken window, glass cutting his palms, his backpack singed but still on his shoulder. Outside, the cotton fields glowed orange, the fires, roar drowning out the crickets, and Jamal sprinted, legs burning as bullets cracked past, one grazing his arm, blood soaking his sleeve. He dove into a ditch, the mercenaries' flashlights sweeping, their curses fading as they assumed the fire had done their work. Jamal's mind raced. Hargrove's reach now a physical blade, not just digital lies. Ray's truck was gone, but Jamal spotted a rusted sedan parked a mile away, its keys left in the ignition, a small-town habit that saved his life. He hotwired it, the engine coughing to life, and peeled out, the 92-degree morning a blur as he sped toward the highway. Gunfire echoing in the distance, the safe house a pyre behind him. The radio screamed his name, the cyber-terrorist narrative now laced with reports of a Millhaven arson, pinned on him, another of Hargrove's lies. Evelyn's board meeting was tomorrow, but Jamal's burner phone was low, his allies gone, his body bruised and bleeding. Hargrove hadn't just framed him, he'd unleashed a war, using airline surveillance tech to track Jamal's every move, turning a software engineer into prey. The sedan's tires hummed, carrying him toward nowhere. The open road a gamble, every passing car a potential threat. Jamal thought of Ray, whose home was now ashes because of him, and vowed to keep fighting, to find a way to expose Hargrove before the next bullet found its mark. The highway stretched endless, Millhaven's smoke fading in the rear view, but Hargrove's shadow loomed larger, his next strike already in motion, a predator who'd never stop hunting. If you're boiling with anger at Hargrove's ruthless chase, comment number 1 to demand justice for Jamal. Smash that like button to amplify his truth, and subscribe to follow this heart-pounding fight. When every safe place burns and the world calls you a criminal, where do you run next? Jamal Carter gripped the wheel of the stolen sedan, his arm throbbing from the bullet graze. The 90-degree Georgia dawn fading into a humid blur as he sped 250 miles south to Miami, the Millhaven safehouse's flames still searing. His memory, Ray's kindness now a debt he couldn't repay. The radio spat lies, calling him an arsonist, a cyber-terrorist, Victor Hargrove's forged narrative tightening the noose around his life, every mile a gamble against the FBI's nationwide manhunt. His burner phone, down to 10%, held one lifeline. A contact from Priya, the journalist, pointing him to a hacktivist group in Miami, a crew called ShadowNet, known for exposing corporate corruption through digital guerrilla tactics. Jamal's heart clung to the hope that they could amplify his evidence, the emails he'd hacked proving Hargrove's racist plot, and turn the tide before Hargrove's mercenaries found him again. Miami's neon skyline loomed after a grueling 8-hour drive, the city's pulse a stark contrast to Millhaven's quiet death. He ditched the sedan in a lot 5 miles from downtown, its rusted frame too hot to keep, and slipped into a crowded bus, the 85-degree air thick with salt and exhaust. ShadowNet's leader, A wiry 30-year-old named Zoe Cruz met him in a basement hideout beneath a vape shop, its walls plastered with monitors and anarchist posters, the air buzzing with the hum of servers. Zoe's crew, a mix of coders and activists, listened as Jamal laid out his story: the airport profiling, the doctored footage, the rigged trial, the burning safe house, their nods fueling his belief that he'd found allies who'd fight with him. Zoe promised a live stream, a global broadcast of Hargrove's emails, unfiltered, unstoppable, her confidence electric as she mapped out the plan. They'd hijack a major streaming platform, blast the truth to millions, and bury Hargrove's lies in a digital avalanche. Jamal worked alongside them, his coding skills syncing with their system, patching vulnerabilities, his exhaustion drowned by the thrill of fighting back. The hideout's clock ticked toward midnight, the 80-degree night outside alive with Miami's chaos, and Jamal felt victory within reach, the stream's potential alight at the end of this nightmare. They launched at 1 in the morning, Zoe's voice booming through the feed, introducing Jamal as a victim of corporate racism, his hacked emails scrolling across the screen, each line a dagger to Hargrove's empire. The view counter skyrocketed, 10 million in an hour, X erupting with "Your Hargrove exposed," comments flooding with outrage, support, demands for justice. Jamal watched, his chest swelling, believing this was the moment the world would finally see him, not as a fugitive, but as a man wronged. His mother's board meeting now a formality, Hargrove's fall inevitable. He high-fived Zoe, her grin, a mirror of his hope, the hideout alive with cheers as the stream's numbers climbed. But then the monitors flickered, a red alert flashing, and Zoe's face drained of color. The hideout's door rattled, boots thundering upstairs, FBI agents storming in, their shouts slicing through the victory. Jamal's stomach dropped as Zoe hesitated, her eyes darting, and he realized the truth. She'd sold him out, her loyalty, bought by Hargrove's bottomless funds. The agents, tipped off by Zoe's leak, tore through the basement, smashing servers, cuffing ShadowNet's crew, their rifles trained on Jamal as he bolted for a back exit. The rain-soaked alley outside, slick under his sneakers. He sprinted, the 82-degree drizzle blinding him, his backpack bouncing, the FBI's shouts fading but their radios crackling close. Zoe's betrayal wasn't just a leak. She'd wiped his evidence, the emails erased from ShadowNet's drives, leaving Jamal with nothing but his burner phone, its battery dead, his allies scattered or arrested. The live stream, his golden moment, was already being spun, news outlets calling it a hacker stunt, Hargrove's PR machine framing ShadowNet as terrorists, Jamal their ringleader. He ducked into a dumpster, the stench of rotting fish choking him, his arm's wound pulsing, the rain masking his gasps as sirens wailed past. Hargrove's retaliation was a masterstroke, turning Jamal's triumph into a trap, his allies into enemies, his evidence into dust. Evelyn's board meeting was hours away, but without proof, her fight felt hollow, her power dwarfed by Hargrove's reach. Jamal's mind raced, the alley's shadows his only refuge, Miami's neon glow a cruel taunt. He thought of the hacktivists, now in cuffs because of him, and Zoe's cold betrayal, a reminder that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. The FBI's net was tightening, Hargrove's mercenaries likely circling, but Jamal's resolve hardened, his next move forming. Find a new way to fight. Maybe in Chicago, 800 miles north, where Evelyn could still be his anchor. Chui climbed out, the rain washing blood from his arm, and moved, knowing every step was a defiance of Hargrove's game, every breath a vow to keep going, even as the Predator's next strike waited in the dark. Jamal Carter shivered in the back of a Greyhound bus rattling 800 miles north from Miami's neon chaos to Chicago's steel heart, the 80-degree Florida rain still clinging to his clothes, Zoe's betrayal, and the FBI's raid, a fresh wound, the stench of that dumpster lingering in his nostrils. His arm, bandaged with a torn shirt, ached from the Millhaven bullet graze, and his burner phone, dead since the alley, left him cut off, a fugitive with no allies. Hargrove's cyber-terrorism frame turning every stranger's glance into a threat. The bus's hum was a fragile shield. Chicago a desperate gamble to reach his mother, Evelyn, whose board meeting had come and gone. Her promise to confront Victor Hargrove, his last thread of hope. He'd scraped together $30 from a pawned watch to buy the ticket, The pawn shop 10 miles from Miami's downtown, its clerk eyeing him like he was already guilty. Chicago's skyline emerged after a grueling 20-hour ride, the city's wind slicing through his thin jacket. The 45-degree night a shock after Florida's heat. Evelyn had texted a rendezvous point before his phone died. A discreet hotel 15 miles from O'Hare Airport, its lobby dim and anonymous, the kind of place where secrets were currency. Jamal slipped in, his backpack light but heavy with meaning, spotting Evelyn in a corner booth, her face etched with strain, her usual poise frayed by battles he couldn't see. She hugged him, her grip fierce, but her eyes darted, wary of unseen eyes. Over coffee, the steam curling in the chilly air, she revealed the board's ultimatum: disown Jamal, brand him a liability, or lose her airline, her life's work, too. Hargrove's allies, a cabal of executives with political strings reaching Washington. Evelyn had refused, her voice steel, but the cost was mounting, her influence eroding as Hargrove's lies painted Jamal as a terrorist. She'd struck a deal, a fragile truce. If Jamal stopped his crusade, dropped the hacking, the exposés, she'd leverage her remaining power to clear his name, maybe even get the FBI warrant lifted. Jamal's heart sank. The idea of quitting a betrayal of Carla, Sarah, Ray, all broken by Hargrove's machine. But Evelyn's plea, her fear for his life, hit hard. He saw the toll on her, the gray in her hair, the weight of fighting a war on two fronts. Against his fire, he nodded, agreeing to pause, believing her deal could end the nightmare. Let him breathe without running. They parted, Evelyn promising to meet the board again in 48 hours. Her plan to force Hargrove's resignation a faint light in the dark. Jamal checked into a cheap motel 20 miles from the hotel, its neon sign flickering, the room smelling of damp carpet and regret. He lay on the sagging bed, the city's pulse a distant hum, and let himself imagine a life reclaimed, a job, a home, his name untarnished. For a moment the silence felt like victory, the deal a lifeline, Evelyn's power his shield. But dawn shattered the illusion. His motel TV blared a breaking news alert, a headline that twisted his gut. Airline owner's adopted son a publicity stunt, the story claiming Evelyn had taken in Jamal, a black orphan, to diversify her brand, a cynical ploy now backfiring with his terrorism. The article, laced with racist venom, quoted anonymous board members, Hargrove's fingerprints all over it, the lies spinning Evelyn's love into a transaction, Jamal's identity into a prop. X erupted, hashtags like "Das Evelyn fraud" trending, trolls flooding Evelyn's profiles with hate, calling her a traitor, a manipulator. Protests formed outside the airline's Chicago office, 10 miles away, not for justice but against her. The crowd's signs demanding her ouster, their chants a knife to Jamal's heart. The news showed Evelyn's face, pale, ambushed by reporters, her denials drowned by the mob. Jamal's motel phone rang, a blocked number, and a familiar voice. Hargrove's oozed through, gloating. "You thought she'd save you? Step out of line, and she's next." The line went dead, but the threat lingered. Hargrove's retaliation not just against Jamal but his family, turning love into a weapon, a mother's sacrifice into a scandal. The motel's walls closed in, the 40-degree chill seeping through, and Jamal realized the deal was a trap, his pause a surrender Hargrove had banked on. The smear campaign wasn't just lies. It was war, threatening Evelyn's leadership, her legacy, and Jamal's safety. The board now a battlefield where Hargrove held the high ground. His supporters, already scattered, vanished under the new narrative, the Justice for Jamal hashtag buried under a tide of hate. Jamal's mind churned, the deal's promise now ash, his mother's fight compromised by Hargrove's reach. He thought of New York 500 miles east, where Hargrove would be at a gala, a chance to confront him directly, expose him to the elite who propped him up. The motel's clock ticked, Chicago's skyline a cold promise, and Jamal knew stopping wasn't an option, not when Hargrove could twist even family into a weapon. He grabbed his backpack, the city's wind biting as he stepped out. Every move a defiance, every plan a risk. Hargrove's next strike a shadow waiting to fall. Jamal Carter slipped through the shadows of New York City's glittering chaos, 500 miles from Chicago's biting cold. The sting of Evelyn's smeared legacy fueling his every step. The 40-degree Manhattan night sharp against his skin, his bandaged arm throbbing under a borrowed jacket. Hargrove's vicious adoption lie, branding his mother a fraud, had turned the airline's board against her, the media's racist venom a blade to their bond. But Jamal refused to let it end there. He'd hitched a ride from a trucker, a quiet Puerto Rican named Luis, who'd driven him 300 miles before dropping him at a Bronx diner, its neon glow a faint refuge 10 miles from Midtown. With no phone, no money, just his backpack and a fire in his gut, Jamal had one shot: infiltrate the airline's annual gala at a skyscraper ballroom 20 miles from the Bronx, where Victor Hargrove would bask in his untouchable power. The gala was a fortress of wealth, CEOs and senators sipping champagne under chandeliers. But Jamal had a plan, born from desperation, and a tip from a disgruntled airline intern he'd met at the diner, a kid named Tariq, who'd slipped him a stolen staff badge. Tariq, 22 and fed up with Hargrove's tyranny, had also handed Jamal a USB drive, a recorded confession from a fired employee, Diane, detailing Hargrove's orders to frame Jamal, bribe judges, torch safe houses. The audio was raw, damning, a grenade Jamal could lob into the gala's heart. He cleaned up in a gas station bathroom, the mirror showing a man hardened by months on the run, his eyes sharp despite the pain. Using the badge, he slipped into the ballroom service entrance. The 80-degree indoor heat a stark contrast to the freezing streets, the scent of caviar and perfume masking the rot of Hargrove's world. Waiters bustled, their trays clinking, and Jamal blended in, his stolen uniform tight but convincing, his heart pounding as he scanned for Hargrove, the man whose lies had cost him everything. The gala's stage glowed, Hargrove stepping up to speak, his silver hair gleaming, his voice smooth as he praised the airline's resilience, never mentioning Jamal or Evelyn, his smile a mask of victory. Jamal's fingers tightened around the USB, his plan simple: hack the gala's AV system, play Diane's confession, and let the elite see Hargrove's true face. He found the control booth, a glass box 10 feet above the floor, and slipped inside, his coding skills kicking in as he bypassed the system's weak password, the screen flickering to life. The crowd applauded Hargrove's speech and Jamal hit play, Diane's voice booming through the speakers, accusing Hargrove of racism, corruption, violence. Gasps rippled through the ballroom, heads turning, phones recording as Diane detailed the doctored footage, the mercenary attacks, the board's complicity. Hargrove froze, his face paling, and Jamal felt a rush. The room's outrage a tide turning against the man who'd hunted him. Guests whispered, some storming out, others confronting Hargrove, their voices a chorus of betrayal. Jamal leaned back, the booth's shadows hiding him, believing this was it. The moment Hargrove's empire cracked, Evelyn's fight bolstered, his name cleared. The crowd's anger grew, a senator grabbing Hargrove's arm demanding answers, and Jamal's chest swelled, victory so close he could taste it. But then the lights died, a blackout plunging the ballroom into darkness, screams echoing as glass shattered somewhere below. Hargrove's voice cut through, calm, commanding, ordering security to lock down the venue. Jamal's screen went black, the system hacked, his triumph snuffed out. Heavy boots stormed the booth, Hargrove's private security, their flashlights blinding, their fists faster. They dragged him out, his arms screaming with pain, and beat him, their knuckles cracking against his ribs, his blood staining the carpet. They hauled him to a service alley, the 10-degree cold biting as they dumped him. Hargrove stepping forward, his breath visible, his eyes glinting with hate. "You'll never win, Carter," he spat, vowing to end him, his security retreating as sirens wailed in the distance. Jamal lay battered, the USB gone, the confession silenced, the gala's chaos spun by Hargrove's PR team as a technical glitch, not a revelation. News vans outside framed the blackout as a protest stunt, Jamal's name dragged deeper into the mud. Evelyn's text, unreachable, felt like a ghost, her boardroom battle now a faint hope against Hargrove's counterstrike. The alley's frost seeped into Jamal's bones, his body bruised, his plan in ruins, but his mind burned. Replaying Tariq's courage, Diane's voice, the crowd's fleeting outrage. Hargrove's attack wasn't just violence. It was a message, a reminder of his untouchable power, turning Jamal's boldest move into a trap. Yet Jamal staggered to his feet, the city's pulse a challenge, knowing he had to rally again, find a new way to fight, maybe with the supporters who'd glimpsed the truth before the blackout. The skyline loomed, New York's cold heart indifferent, but Jamal's resolve was fire. His next step a vow to rise, even as Hargrove's shadow promised worse. If you're seething at Hargrove's brutal takedown, comment number 1 to rally behind Jamal's defiance. Hit that like button to shine light on his truth, and subscribe to catch every pulse-pounding twist. When your boldest stand crumbles, and the enemy strikes harder, how do you fight back from the ashes? Jamal Carter staggered from the icy New York alley, his ribs screaming from Hargrove's security team's fists, the 10-degree cold numbing his bloodied hands, the gala's blackout, and Diane's silenced confession a fresh wound, the city's skyline a cruel reminder of his shattered stand. The 40-degree dawn offered no warmth as he limped to a safe house 20 miles from Manhattan, a basement apartment lent by Tariq, the intern who'd given him the USB, his faith in Jamal a flicker of hope amid the wreckage. Bruised and broken, Jamal's mind burned with defiance, Hargrove's gloating vow to end him fueling his resolve to fight harder, not fade. His backpack, singed and battered, held only a cracked burner phone, charged just enough to check X, where clips of the gala's chaos circulated, some calling it a protest, others Hargrove's spin of a tech glitch. But a few voices, sparked by Diane's voice, demanded truth. Jamal saw a chance, a crack in Hargrove's armor, and leaned into it, using Tariq's laptop to post a call to action, his words raw, recounting the airport, the trial, the fire, the beating, urging supporters to rise against the airlines. Lies. He tagged every city he'd touched, Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, New York, and within hours, his post went viral. Jamal fights back, trending as thousands shared his story. Their anger, a growing storm. By noon, protests erupted in 10 cities, from Los Angeles 2,000 miles west to Boston 200 miles north, crowds chanting outside airline offices, their signs bold with "Justice now and end Hargrove's reign." Atlanta's protest, 15 miles from Jamal's old loft, drew hundreds, their voices echoing through the 90-degree heat. Live streams showing faces of every hue, united against the racism that had hunted Jamal. News outlets, pressured by the uprising, began questioning Hargrove's narrative, some replaying gala clips, Diane's confession gaining traction. Jamal watched from the safe house, the basement's damp air heavy, Tariq's TV blaring updates, and felt a surge, believing this movement could force the board to oust Hargrove, clear his name, save Evelyn's legacy. He texted her, his message, brief, urging her to push the board now, the protests her leverage, and she replied, "I'm trying, son, hold on," her words a lifeline, her fight his anchor. The movement grew, X posts hitting 10 million views, a petition to fire Hargrove nearing 1 million signatures, and Jamal let himself dream of victory, of walking free, his mother's airline cleansed of Hargrove's poison. He pictured the boardroom, 30 miles from his safe house, Evelyn facing down Hargrove's allies, the protests' roar tipping the scales. For a moment, in the basement's dim glow, he felt unstoppable, the people's power his shield, Hargrove's lies crumbling under, collective rage. But then the TV flashed a new alert, a headline that froze his blood. Terrorist plot disguised as protests, with footage of masked figures torching an airline office in Chicago, 800 miles away. The news claiming Jamal's movement was a front for violence. The images were staged, the fires set by a private militia, their gear too clean, their moves too precise, hired by Hargrove to frame the protests as terrorism. X turned. Where Jamal fights back drowned by Fashang stop the riots, the petition stalled. Supporters, vilified. News anchors fed Hargrove's script, called Jamal a mastermind, his face plastered alongside burning buildings, the narrative twisting his uprising into chaos. Police cracked down, tear gas clouding Atlanta's streets, 15 miles from where Jamal once marched, his supporters arrested in droves, their signs trampled, their voices silenced. Boston's protest, 200 miles north, saw 50 cuffed, their live streams cut, the movement's momentum gutted. The safe house's walls seemed to shrink, the 45-degree chill seeping in, and Jamal's phone buzzed with a text from that cursed unknown number. "Your little rebellion's done. Keep going, and they all pay." Hargrove's retaliation was apocalyptic, turning Jamal's hope into a national scare, his supporters into criminals, the protests into a trap. Evelyn's next text was grim, the board spooked, her push for Hargrove's ouster stalled by the terror narrative. Jamal sat, Tariq's worried eyes on him, the TV looping images of arrests, the movement he'd sparked now a noose around his neck. The basement's damp air choked him, the uprising's failure a heavier blow than the gala's fists, Hargrove's militia a ghost army he couldn't fight. Yet his mind raced, replaying a name Tariq had mentioned, a whistleblower, a former airline exec hiding 200 miles from Atlanta, who might hold documents to expose Hargrove's deeper crimes. The safe house was no longer safe. The protests' collapse-proof Hargrove's eyes were everywhere. But Jamal's resolve hardened, his next move forming, a desperate plan to find this ally, to keep fighting even as the world burned. He stood, the city's distant hum a call to action, knowing every step risked everything. Hargrove's next strike a specter ready to pounce. Jamal Carter crouched in a rural cabin 200 miles south of New York's frozen chaos, the 40-degree Georgia night seeping through the warped wooden walls. The protest collapse still a raw ache, the images of tear-gassed supporters and burning airline offices looping in his mind. Hargrove's militia turning his uprising into a terrorist myth. The cabin, a hideout Tariq had whispered about before Jamal fled the safe house, smelled of pine and neglect, its single bulb casting shadows over a rickety table where his cracked burner phone lay, barely alive after a pawnshop charge 15 miles from the nearest town. His ribs throbbed from the gala beating, his arms bullet graze itching under a makeshift bandage. But his resolve burned hotter than ever, fueled by the text from Hargrove's unknown number, a taunt that his rebellion was dead, a lie Jamal refused to swallow. The protests had failed, Evelyn's boardroom push stalled, his supporters jailed or silenced, but Tariq's last tip, a name, Richard Ellison, a former airline executive turned whistleblower, was a spark in the dark. Ellison, 55, had fled Hargrove's inner circle, hiding in this nowhere town, holding documents that could tie Hargrove to a racist political network, a conspiracy deeper than Jamal's hacked emails had shown. Jamal had hitched a ride from a trucker, a quiet woman named Alma, who'd driven him 100 miles south from a gas station, her eyes kind but cautious, sensing his desperation without asking why. The cabin was Ellison's last known address, a dot on a map 2 miles from a sleepy diner, and Jamal found him at midnight, a wiry man with haunted eyes, his hands shaking as he handed over a folder thick with memos, bank records, emails, proof. Hargrove funded hate groups, rigged elections, and used the airline as a front for laundering their cash. Ellison's voice cracked, recounting how Hargrove had threatened his family, forced him into silence. But Jamal's story, shared over weak coffee, stirred his courage, a vow to fight back. Jamal's heart raced, the documents a nuclear bomb, enough to bury Hargrove and his allies, maybe even clear his name. He used the cabin's ancient laptop, its dial-up creaking, to upload the files to an underground platform, broadcasting them to X, Reddit, anywhere the feds couldn't touch. His post titled Hargrove's Dirty Empire, the evidence unredacted. Every name a nail in the coffin. By dawn, the post exploded. 10 million views in hours. Dr. Hargrove Unmasked trending as users shared the files. News outlets picking up the story, some calling it the scandal of the decade. Protests reignited, smaller but fiercer, outside airline offices in Atlanta, 90 miles away, and D.C., 400 miles north, the 95-degree heat no match for the crowd's rage. Jamal watched the cabin's TV, Ellison chain-smoking, beside him and felt victory's edge, believing this leak would force the board to act, save Evelyn, end the manhunt. He texted her, urging her to use the scandal, her reply quick, "I'm pushing, stay safe." Her words a fragile hope. The documents were ironclad, Hargrove's network exposed, his power teetering, and Jamal let himself imagine freedom, a life where he wasn't a fugitive. But then the cabin's TV flashed, a headline gutting his triumph. Fugitive Carter's terrorist confession, showing a deep fake video. Jamal's face, his voice, admitting to bombing airline offices. The footage so real. It fooled millions. X turned. The Miter Hargrove unmasked hashtag buried under Seicher Carter confesses. The protests branded as terror plots. Supporters fleeing. Ellison's phone rang. A panicked call from his daughter, saying men had taken him from their home. Hargrove's goons silencing the whistleblower. Jamal's burner buzzed, Hargrove's voice sneering through, "You and your mom are finished." The deepfake wasn't just a lie, it was a blade, convincing even Evelyn, who texted, heartbroken, "Is it true?" She publicly disowned him, her statement. On the news, her face ashen, the board circling her like vultures. The cabin's door rattled, bounty hunters closing in, their flashlights sweeping the pines, drawn by Hargrove's reward, $1 million for Jamal's head. He grabbed the folder, Ellison's documents, his last weapon, and slipped out a back window. The 42-degree chill biting as he sprinted through the woods, branches snapping, his breath a cloud. The hunter's shouts faded, but the deepfakes. Damage was done. Jamal's truth erased, his mother broken, Ellison gone. Hargrove's retaliation was a masterpiece, turning evidence into treason, family into strangers, the world against him. The woods gave way to a dirt road, a stolen bike his only escape, the 90-mile ride to Atlanta a suicide mission. But Jamal's mind churned, replaying Evelyn's text, her doubt a wound deeper than any bullet. He had to reach her, prove the deepfake was a lie, or find another way to fight, maybe at Hargrove's mansion, 50 miles from the city, where the snake himself hid. The road stretched, the cabin smoke a distant memory, but Hargrove's shadow loomed, his next strike, a guillotine waiting to fall. Jamal Carter pedaled the stolen bike through Georgia's pre-dawn chill, the 45-degree air cutting through his tattered jacket, his ribs aching from the gala beating, his arms bullet graze burning under its crude bandage. The deepfakes, betrayal, Evelyn's disownment, and Ellison's kidnapping a weight heavier than the 90-mile ride back to Atlanta. The cabin's woods were a fading nightmare, but Hargrove's voice sneering through that burner phone call, "You and your mom are finished," echoed like a death knell. The whistleblower's documents in his backpack, his last weapon. Their pages, creased but unbroken, proof of Hargrove's racist empire, now his only shot. The deepfake had turned the world against him, X flooded with his fake confession. Here's Carter confesses burying the truth, even Evelyn believing he'd bombed airline offices, her public statement a knife to his heart. Atlanta's skyline loomed, 90 miles from the cabin, a city that once felt like home, now a battlefield. Hargrove's mansion 50 miles beyond its limits, a fortress where the snake himself hid, his power untouched by protests, leaks, or confessions. Jamal's legs burned, the bike's chain rattling, his breath clouding in the 40-degree dark. But his mind was clear, a plan forming. Sneak into Hargrove's estate, record him admitting his crimes, broadcast it live, a final stand to shatter the lies. He ditched the bike at a gas station 10 miles from Atlanta, its neon sign flickering, and hitched a ride with a delivery driver, a young black woman named Keisha, who sensed his urgency and asked no questions, dropping him 5 miles from the mansion's gated perimeter. The estate sprawled, a 20-acre maze of manicured lawns and armed guards, its lights glowing like a taunt in the 90-degree morning. The humidity thick as Jamal slipped through a drainage ditch, his backpack soaked, Ellison's documents safe in a plastic bag. He'd scouted the mansion online, using a library computer 15 miles back, memorizing its layout, its security cams, its weaknesses. The deepfake's lies had isolated him, but his coding skills, honed over years of building apps, were his edge, letting him hack a guard's radio frequency, sowing confusion as he cut through a fence, his heart pounding, the mansion's shadow swallowing him. Inside, the air was cool, 70 degrees, the scent of leather and wealth a stark contrast to the blood and sweat of his fight. Hargrove's office was on the second floor, a mahogany lair 20 feet from the main hall, its door ajar. Hargrove's voice drifting out, gloating to an aide about Evelyn's fall, the board's surrender, Jamal's doom. Jamal set up his burner phone, its battery at 5%, and hit record, capturing Hargrove's confession, every word a nail in his coffin. "I framed Carter, bribed the judge, burned the safe house, made the deep fake, all to keep this airline, mine." Jamal's pulse surged, the truth in his hands. A live stream, his next step. X his stage to expose the monster. He edged toward a balcony 30 feet above the lawn, ready to broadcast, believing this was it, the moment Hargrove's lies collapsed. Evelyn's faith restored, his name cleared. The stream went live, his face hidden, Hargrove's voice booming to thousands, then millions. 'Twas a truth unleashed, trending as viewers shared the feed, the confession undeniable. Jamal's chest swelled, victory so close he could feel it. The mansions, silence, a sign Hargrove hadn't noticed. But then alarms shrieked, red lights flashing, guards' boots thundering up the stairs. Hargrove's aide had spotted the stream, and the mansion locked down, its security system rigged by Hargrove's tech, hacking Jamal's phone, replacing the confession with propaganda, a looped ad praising the airline's safety, his truth erased in seconds. Guards burst onto the balcony, their tasers crackling, but Jamal ran, diving into a garage below, the 95-degree heat inside choking, the air thick with gasoline. A spark ignited, flames erupting, the garage a trap Hargrove had set, rigged to burn if breached. Jamal's skin blistered, his backpack singed, but he crawled through smoke. Ellison's documents clutched tight and kicked out a side door, the fire's roar drowning out the guards' shouts. He stumbled into the estate's woods 2 miles from the gate, his lungs burning, his body screaming, the stream's failure a gut punch. Hargrove's voice now on every news channel, announcing a new airline policy banning disruptive passengers, a coded attack on minorities, cheered by his allies. The wood's shadows hid Jamal, the 90-degree sun relentless, his phone dead, the confession lost, Evelyn's doubt a wall between them. Hargrove's retaliation was surgical, turning Jamal's boldest move into a fiery grave, his policy, a racist legacy that would outlive this fight. News helicopters buzzed, framing the fire as Jamal's terrorism, his name damned further, the movement he'd sparked now ashes. Yet Jamal limped on, the documents his last card, his mind racing to Atlanta, 50 miles away, where he could upload them, maybe reach Evelyn, prove he wasn't the monster Hargrove painted. The woods gave way to a highway, the city's pulse. A faint call, but Hargrove's victory felt final, his next strike a specter ready to crush what little Jamal had left. Jamal Carter stumbled through the Georgia woods, 50 miles from Atlanta's pulsing heart. His skin blistered from the mansion's fiery trap, his ribs cracked, his arms bullet graze oozing under a scorched bandage. The weight of Hargrove's new racist airline policy and the failed livestream crushing his spirit. Yet Ellison's documents, clutched in his singed backpack, were a flickering ember of defiance. The 90-degree dawn baked the earth, sweat stinging his eyes as he limped, the roar of Hargrove's garage inferno still echoing, the deepfake's lie and Evelyn's disownment a deeper burn than any flame. His phone was dead, his allies gone, the world believing he was a terrorist. But Jamal's mind clung to one goal: upload the documents, expose Hargrove's empire, prove to Evelyn he wasn't the monster she'd renounced. He reached a truck stop, 10 miles from the city, its neon sign buzzing in the humid air, and slipped into a grimy internet cafe, its ancient computers humming under flickering lights. With trembling hands, he connected the documents to an underground platform, the same one he'd used before, typing a post titled, "Hargrove's Final Lie," attaching every memo, every bank record, every email linking Hargrove to hate groups, political fixes, and the airline's dark money. His fingers shook, the 95-degree heat inside the cafe suffocating, but he hit send, the files racing into the digital ether, unstoppable by Hargrove's hacks. Within minutes, the post went viral. 20 million views in an hour. X exploding with Tasha Hargrove falls, users sharing the evidence, news outlets scrambling to verify, protests reigniting outside airline offices in Atlanta, 15 miles away, and Chicago, 800 miles north, the 90-degree sun fueling the crowd's rage. The documents were airtight, naming names, dates, dollar amounts, a roadmap to Hargrove's racist network, and the board, cornered by the uproar, called an emergency meeting. Live stream showing Evelyn's face, resolute, demanding Hargrove's ouster. By noon, the news broke. Hargrove was fired, his office cleared, his allies deserting him, the airline stock tanking as sponsors fled. Protesters cheered, their signs waving in Atlanta's humid streets, and Jamal, slumped in the cafes. Plastic Chair felt a rush, believing he'd won. The truth finally free. His name cleared. Evelyn's legacy saved. He hitched a ride to a safe house 5 miles from downtown, a friend's apartment where he could rest. And there, Evelyn met him, her embrace tight, tears in her eyes, apologizing for doubting him. The deepfake's lies shattered by the document's truth. They sat, the city's pulse a hopeful hum, and Jamal let himself breathe, picturing a life rebuilt. The FBI warrant lifted, his fight over. But as night fell, the 80-degree air heavy, a hidden camera in the safe house blinked, its feed streaming to an unknown server, capturing Jamal and Evelyn unaware as it planted fake evidence, photos of a murder weapon, a body tied to Jamal's name. The TV flashed, a new alert. Hargrove had fled the country, his private jet landing in a non-extradition haven. But the real blow came next. A leaked report accusing Jamal of a new crime, a murder he'd never committed. The evidence so convincing, it sparked fresh outrage. X turned again. Carter killer trending, the protests faltering, supporters torn. Evelyn's face paled, the board's trust wavering, her leadership under fire once more. Jamal's heart sank, the document's victory. A cruel mirage, Hargrove's final trap sprung from afar. The camera's feed traced to a senator, a shadowy figure in Hargrove's network, his voice on a hacked call vowing to carry on the fight, to keep the airline's racist legacy alive, a new puppet master rising as Hargrove vanished. The safe houses, walls closed in, the city's lights a taunt, and Jamal realized the war wasn't over. The system's roots deeper than one man, its racism a hydra with endless heads. Yet he stood, Evelyn at his side, her hand gripping his, and vowed to fight on. The documents a spark that had lit a movement, protests still simmering, voices refusing to fade. He looked out, the skyline a challenge, and swore to expose the senator, to keep pushing, his resolve a flame no trap could douse. The 85-degree night stretched, the cameras blink a warning, but Jamal's fight was bigger now. A call to millions, a promise that truth, though battered, would rise. Again, even as the senator's shadow loomed, his first strike already in motion. The saga of Jamal Carter in security drags young man off plane, he calls his mom, the airline's owner, unveils brutal truths about systemic racism, resilience, and the unrelenting fight for justice. First, it exposes how racism isn't just personal prejudice but a machine, woven into institutions like airports, courts, and media, where lies like Hargrove's deepfake and doctored footage can ruin lives in hours. Jamal's journey, from a wrongful plane ejection to a fugitive hunted by mercenaries, shows how power protects itself, using wealth, tech, and fear to silence truth. Yet, his refusal to break, even when betrayed by allies, burned in fires, or disowned by his mother, teaches that resilience is a weapon, forged in pain but sharpened by purpose. Every setback, rigged trials, militia attacks, smear campaigns, reveals the cost of challenging a system that profits from inequality. But Jamal's persistence, uploading Ellison's documents to spark a movement, proves one voice can ignite millions. The shocking twist, with a senator rising to continue Hargrove's racist legacy, underscores a final lesson. Victories are fragile, and systemic change demands constant vigilance, not just one fight. Jamal's vow to keep going, despite a new frame-up, calls us to stand firm, to question narratives, to amplify the silenced. This story isn't just his. It's a mirror for our world, urging us to confront racism's roots, no matter the cost. So, what's your take? Comment number 1 if you believe one person can challenge a system. Hit like to spread Jamal's truth. Subscribe for more racism stories, and share to inspire others. Thank you for joining this journey. May you find strength to fight injustice in your own way.